that, allow us to briefly look at what the papers detail, and then we'll also shift gears to look at the newspapers. We'll shift gears to look at some of the stories that have been prepared by my team, and then we will begin the discussion. The Daily Nation this morning, on this 12th day of April, speaks to a couple of matters that are of interest to us. We start off with the main story, or the first story, and mobile money deals register 20-month low, value of transactions fall on harsh times. A story captured on page 26. What could have informed this as well? The coming in of very many forms of transactions that are conducted, via the mobile phone, and most of the Kenyans as well getting to levels where they have asked for, lots and lots of loans. Those are the digital lenders. But then again, as it is, this report speaks to the fact that this has gone down. What informs this? Certainly, they also speak of the harsh economic times, one that we are looking up to the government to see how best they manage to handle it on our behalf, and how digital lender formed WhatsApp group on My Family over 25,000 loan. A story captured on page 28, almost on the same, on page 8. Almost falling on the same family of conversation, perhaps one that you'd want to look at and understand some more what it is all about. Away from it, Kenya Kwanza picks team of mediators, including a Jubilee Party member of Parliament, Kwanza Azimio. And this then is interesting to watch because it's the main story that we'll be looking at. And we're talking about a Jubilee Party member, that is Aidan Kainan. Interesting times. This one then is a DP person, that is Democratic Party person. And so this is quite interesting to watch and understand what really could be informing the same. And we all know that Jubilee sits under Azimio One Kenya, though we have seen adjustments of some of the leaders that have been voted in through this very party as well, sort of shifting allegiance to appear as though they're working with the president. And President Ruto yesterday explained to the ruling coalition that members of parliament the coalition members of parliament, the genesis of his truce with opposition Chief Odinga and the discomfort with some of the grievances, that is including the demand to open election servers, reinstate the Cherera 4 and bring back the subsidy program. And in a move that would draw resistance, he tasked his team of negotiators to limit the conversations to the reconstitution of the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission. A story captured on page 4 and page 5, and we'll be looking to see what then plays out of this, if the ground is set and ready for these conversations, what is likely to culminate of it, and whether then what it is that the Azimio side had proposed, it goes to numerous other individuals apart from those ones that are at the level of the House. Alarm as invasions of private properties spread in country. This is quite as well an unfortunate report. 2 weeks after goons invaded the Kenyatta family's Northlands farm in Kiambu, security agents in Nakuru, Bomet and Kilifi are now grappling with a worrying trend of invasions by illegal groups. A story captured on page 7. What could be informing this? And of course, they speak of squatters that as well got to this phase, and you ask what really could be the reason and what needs to be done to make sure that the lands and the properties of these individuals then are protected. Members of parliament are set to debate high cost of electricity and the general conversation of the high cost of living that played out at the level of the House yesterday. Well, of course, most of them from the Kenya Kwanza team arguing that this was a doing of the handshake government, what they call it, and they insist that it would be important for the Azimio team to allow them time to address some of these matters instead of pointing fingers. And certainly we'll be looking to see what really speaks to this and whether then this point of address would be helpful. And not forgetting what played out yesterday night, and Benzema leads Real Madrid to Stamford Bridge as AC Milan then welcome Napoli. Teams face off in first leg Champions League quarter-final clash. A story captured on page 35, that is in the world of sports. Kenyatta University student who was found dead owed me 1 million, says the boyfriend. and that the suspect, Jesse Wafula Waloha, also tells court victim June Cherop Kangogo was his business partner. That is a story captured on page 3, a developing story, and we'll be here to make sure that you are updated on the same. A brief look at what the Standard newspaper details this morning. Ghosts of Uhuru's BBI now haunt Mount Kenya leaders. A story captured on page 5 of the Standard newspaper, an interesting one. And we've been asking ourselves whether then the BBI conversation is coming back to hunt. And of course, of Uhuru's BBI plan, as they have said, is haunting the Mount Kenya leaders ahead. You'd perhaps want to understand why. Well, regions legislatures revive push for 1 man, 1 shilling formula in resource allocation, and leaders say distribution of CDF favors constituencies with less population. And this has been there for quite a long time. We are having the Yala Member of Parliament, Maina Karobia, saying that we have members of Parliament and senators elected who are capable of pushing for 1 man, 1 shilling that will help Mount Kenya region. And George Koimburi, on the other side, Member of Parliament of Juja, says allocation to my constituencies for Basari Kitty is 40 million, which I am supposed to share with over 70,000 applicants. Do your mathematics and tell me how each then will receive and how realistic it would be. On the other side, the CS for Trade, Moses Kuria, says, let's first deal with Raila Odinga, but I will request you to go back to Parliament and push for Basari to be expunged from CDF. It will be an interesting conversation to watch as we get to see whether then there's going to be a revival of this, also this bringing to the fore the conversation on the delimitation of boundaries and what needs to be done, especially at this very point, whether then it will be an IBC affair or not. In the world of business, KRA eyes new excise tax system. Of course, we have witnessed lots of adjustments as to the collection of tax in the country, and what the common Mwananchi then would argue is that, well, out of these adjustments, upwards for that matter, we need to make sure that then there's value for this money that is picked from the taxpayers' pocket. Realtors for Lampard in Madrid, a story captured on page 40. Also, that is in the world of sports. And we'll certainly be having our very own, sports desks working on that to make sure that you are updated. And tough times ahead for Bola Tinubu, that is in the world segment, and also speaking to Africa's matters, that is in Nigeria. It's not all been rosy, especially acknowledging that his was a vote that was not more than 30% or 30-something percent, speaking to the fact that there was a lot of apathy, as well as most of the people of Nigeria were not confident in the vote process, begging the question as to whether then the president will have it easy to run the government. And so as he is being watched by the global fraternity to see how best then he steers the wheel of Nigeria, we can only wait to see how he manages. And playing a hardball, Kenya Kwanza Alliance rejects key Raila Odinga demands and declares that negotiations will only be centered around the constitution of the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission. Takes a hardline stance, claiming that blackmail and intimidation, even as Azimio announces a return of public engagements this week, will perhaps not shake them. A story captured on page 6, and the faces of the 7 on this other side are here. We're talking about Amina Mnyazi, we're talking about Ledama Olekina, Edwin Sifuna, and Enoch Wambua, as well as Otiende Amolo and David Kosing. And on this other side of Ruto, we have Wengi Mutuse, Edan Keinan, Esther Okenyuri, Boni Halwale, George Murugara, yes, Hilary Sigei, as well as Lydia Haika. Well, systems go. This is what we'll be looking at this morning as we get the view of the members of Parliament that will be having radical changes to CCS's face MPs in Parliament. And after the 2010 Constitution kept the executive out of Parliament, members of Parliament have amended the rules that will see Interior Cabinet Secretary, that is Kithure Kindiki, become the first minister to appear on the floor of the House today to answer questions. A story captured on page 8. It's a first of its kind, and it will be interesting to watch what comes out of this, aspect of approach for purposes of accountability. The People Daily. see what the People Daily has in store this morning. And yes, here we are, the People Daily, the front page of this People Daily, or the first page that has the stories on the People Daily. Raila pleaded for rerun in 2013. Well, this is interesting. This is on this very edition that continues, of course, written by Isaac Hassan, and speaking to the difficult times that they experienced as commissioners and the entity or that oversees the election in the country. And he says in his explosive memoir that referee of a dirty, ugly game, that is former IEBC chairperson Isaac Hassan, recalls the day called leader Raila Odinga asked him to call for a rerun. That is interesting to watch as well. We're talking about the IEBC talks between the Azimio One Kenya Alliance and the Kenya Kwanza team, and they speak of Raila Ali's hit out at Kenya Kwanza for limiting what can be discussed. As well, only process to pick new electoral bosses will be an agenda. That is what Majority Leader Ishungwa says. And protests start afresh in Nairobi tomorrow, says Oparanya, amid deadlock. Whether you would want to look at them or categorize them as protests as well is dependent on how you look at it. But then again, they're speaking of town hall barazas and so much more to address this. On this other side, retrenching is an option, and he says on the question of the cash crunch, and the president on the other side maintaining a hard stance to say that the government will not get itself into debt for purposes of clearing the salaries of the civil servants. It will be interesting to watch what happens. This as Medixin strike threat over late March payment. Be following up on the same to give you more updates. Allow us to quickly take a look at some of the stories that have been prepared by my team, and that Kenya Kwanza has unveiled its bipartisan team that is to engage the opposition for talks in a parliamentary group meeting chaired by President William Ruto at State House. Now, the new team was, however, met by opposition, by Azimio protesting the inclusion of members of parliament Aidan Kainan and Mwengi Mutuse, whom they say are still Azimio MPs. Apollo Kamau reports on a day the opposition announced the rerun or the return of people's barazas to explain the next course of action after suspending protests.
In what marks another step forward to the bipartisan talks, whose date remains unknown, Kenya Kwanza unveiled its 7-member team that will engage the opposition on contentious issues. During a meeting at State House, chaired by President William Ruto, the 7-member team comprises of 3 senators and 4 members of the National Assembly, among them Kakamega Senator Boni Halwale, Tharaka MP George Murugara, nominated Senator S.A. Okenyuri, Kibwezi West MP Mwengi Mutuse, Taita Taveta Woman Representative Lydia Haika, Bomet Senator Hilary Sigei, and Eldaz MP Adan Kainan. President William Ruto drawing the line during the PG that Kenya Kwanza will only deal with the reconstitution of IEBC.
They are asking us to open servers. This parliamentary group has asserted that we have no key to any server other than the key to open the economic servers to reinstate our economy to where it ought to be. And the instructions that our team have are to limit their conversation on matters that are of great concern to the people of Kenya, the IEBC.
The opposition, however, dismissed the new team as lacking seriousness, while saying Kenya Kwanza has broken the law for nominating Azimio MPs Eldaz MP Adan Kainan of Jubilee Party and Kibwezi West MP Mwengi Mutuse of Maendeleo Chapchap Party, who is also the Vice Chair of the National Assembly's Justice and Legal Affairs Committee.
Both Maendeleo Chapchap and Jubilee Party remain legally members of the Azimio coalition. Okay? So, already they are starting this process on a wrong footing.
The statements by Honorable Pio and I is that Azimio are not ready for negotiations, that Azimio are just playing a game of musical chairs, that Azimio want to play laying tactics so that the negotiations do not start, because in the first place, they had no genuine grievance.
The formation of the bipartisan team coincided with a statement from the Azimio camp naming Rarieda MP Otiende Amolo to lead the Azimio bipartisan team, while stating the return of People's Baraza's forums instead of mass protests. A statement from the Azimio Coalition Executive Council Chair Wycliffe Oparanya says the coalition will hold a town hall People's Baraza on Thursday this week in Nairobi and another one on Sunday in Kamukunji to explain their next course of action after the suspension of demos. Despite both sides committing themselves to an honest dialogue, the hardline positions threaten to scatter the talks if sobriety does not prevail.
We believe that we don't have a very combative team. We have a team that can be able to engage soberly, and they are not too sycophantic. That's what we believe. I think they appear like people who are intellectuals and who can be able to reason. And they have an agenda.
With the two sides having named their respective teams, all eyes are on the first meeting, a crucial meeting expected to break the ice and iron out contentious issues before Azimio and Kenya Kwanza get down to work. Apul Kamau, TV47 at Parliament Buildings.
Now, the public service in Kenya is at risk of a strike as thousands of government employees are yet to receive their March dues. However, the president has moved swiftly to reassure the affected civil servants that their salaries will be deposited into their accounts shortly. This comes as the opposition raised pertinent questions about the matter. And as our reporter Moige William explores the details of how much taxpayers pay to government employees, experts are warning that the country's wage bill is reaching dire levels. They are advising the government to implement measures to control it, as the situation could worsen if not addressed promptly.
While catching a bus to town, I could not help but overhear conversation between two individuals who were lamenting about delayed salaries and the austerity measures they had to resort to in order to meet their expenses. It turned out that they were civil servants from different state departments, but they both had empty pockets. President William Ruto had recently assured the public that the issue of delayed salaries had been resolved, but government employees were still struggling with empty pockets over the Easter holiday.
We will not continue the old tradition of borrowing money to pay recurrent expenditure, to pay salaries. We are going to pay salaries from our own resources. We are going to carry out our recurrent expenditure using our own resources.
Some quarters within the government were defending the situation, stating that it was caused by servicing loans. However, the opposition led by the National Assembly Minority Whip Opiyo Wandayi was asking tough questions about the matter. One might wonder if the government is broke. Recent figures released by the Kenya Revenue Authority showed that revenue collection averaged 95.1% of the original target and 93.4% of the supplementary target as of end of March, representing a collection of 1.5 billion shillings and an 8% growth. While there is growth in revenue collection, on the flip side, the government is struggling to pay its employees. Data by the Control of Budget revealed that Kenya spent 55% of tax collections on debt repayment. During the period from July-December 2022, the government incurred a significant increase in spending as it allocated 526 billion towards servicing domestic and external debts. This marked a substantial rise of 32.8% compared to previous periods. These figures indicate that for every 100 shillings collected by the Kenya Revenue Authority during that period, an average of 55 shillings was allocated to servicing debt.
When it comes to salaries, nobody has told us whether the wage bill we are always told about is the exact amount, and if it's the exact amount, what are these people doing? Nobody has come up with an accurate audit of the wage bill. We still hear they are ghost workers. So we need to seriously address the issue of wage bill in terms of getting the accurate amount of this wage bill.
Meanwhile, the Kenyan government through the Treasury requires about 50 billion shillings monthly to pay civil servants' salaries. The government's expenditure for Kenya stood at 1.34 trillion Kenya shillings from July to December 2022, a steadily rising number compared to the previous fiscal year, where close to 3 trillion shillings was spent on expenditure. The William Ruto-led Kenya Kwanza government has proposed to increase recurrent spending by 92.2 billion shillings, but cut development expenditure by 106 billion shillings. The question remains, will this help the Ruto administration solve the financial challenges it has found itself in?
If we are not going to stimulate the economy and generate more revenue so that KRI in the future will tax and to collect more than it is collecting, then we are in serious problem. So there is need for us to stimulate the economy so that the KRI can be able to get more revenue in the years to come and in the months to come, so that even as the NAC government did, we don't need to borrow.
Among the quick remedies government is looking into to manage its finances is through debt. As of December 2022, the country's debt stood at more than 9.1 trillion shillings, almost reaching the debt ceiling of 10 trillion shillings. Economic experts are advising the government to take drastic and effective measures to control the situation, as it could severely impact on the nation.
And one of the key drivers of where we are is the issue of debt management. I think debt management is an area which we need to openly and sincerely accept that the way the debt management has been done is the reason as why we are here.
Amidst the ongoing issue of the wage bill, it's important not to forget the dire situation in the counties, where governors continue to protest the failure of the National Treasury to release money to the counties for the fourth consecutive month since December. By the end of March, counties reported being owed 122.1 billion shillings, with governors blaming the withheld cash for the inability to pay county workers' salaries. If these figures are anything to go by, it translates to services being hampered at the devolved units, as this is the longest period that the counties have gone without receiving their 30% equitable share of revenue from the Treasury. All said and done, the question that lingers in the minds of many Kenyans is when the situation will be better. Basically, when will they get more money in their pockets and a better and affordable cost of living? Moige William for TV47, Nairobi.
Now, President William Ruto now says that his administration is committed on eradicating what he termed as a primitive culture of inhibiting high standards of performance in the public service. The head of state says that ministries, departments, and agencies must motivate, reinforce, encourage, and support their staff, as Micah Gungu details.
President William Ruto has asked public servants to exercise efficiency, transparency, and accountability while discharging their duties. During the formal unveiling of the report assessing the performance of ministries, state corporations and tertiary institutions for the fiscal year 2021-2022 at the Kenyatta International Convention Center in Nairobi, the head of state emphasized the public's expectation for a high level of performance in the public service.
The imperative of ensuring that the provisions of the public service to citizens meets a specified constitutional threshold makes it inevitable for us to insist upon a more standardized, rational, and evidence-based management regime.
The head of state acknowledged that the demand for excellence predates the constitution, reflecting the clear aspiration of Kenyans.
What is it that we are going to do so that they too can have an opportunity to work, to get a job, to do a business, and to go about their lives as the rest of us are doing?
In order to uphold transparency and accountability, the head of state affirmed the government's unwavering commitment to revitalizing performance management as a strategic tool for motivating, facilitating, and coordinating the public service.
We must do our part in full to ensure that this event and the process it represents underscores high professional standards, highlights efficient, effective, and economic use of resources, demonstrates responsiveness, promptness, effectiveness, impartiality, and equity in service provision.
Ruto underscored the importance of prioritizing the completion of viable, budgeted and already commenced projects and programs before embarking on new ones as a crucial approach to responsible governance. The head of state urged public servants to eliminate any practices that undermine or discourage high standards of performance in the public service. Instead, he emphasized the need to motivate, reinforce, encourage and support public servants in their pursuit of excellence.
Although the performance management framework is now in the 19th annual cycle, it is important to note that it emphatically and systematically incorporates, articulates, and enforces the values and principles of public service as laid down in Article 232 of the Constitution of Kenya.
Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua said a vibrant and motivated public service was key to delivery of services to Kenyans.
We are not saying by any means that investigative agencies where there are issues of impropriety, of mismanagement, of misappropriation should not do their work. All we are saying is that before you can conclude that somebody has done something wrong, protect his or her dignity. Because these public servants have families, they have friends.
Mike Kagwongo, TV 47, Nairobi.
All right, now as political parties position themselves with the ruling government in a bid to gain from it, the Movement for Democracy and Growth, MDG party, is seeking to register more people to the party in Siaya. The region has for the longest time been referred to as Raila Odinga and Orange Democratic Movement stronghold, that toll as even as we take a look at this.
Political parties are scrambling for members in Siaya County, with the Movement for Democracy and Growth MDG and United Democratic Alliance UDA launching separate membership drives to bolster their numbers in what appears to be a move to make inroads in an area believed to be the Orange Democratic Movement turf. Grassroots officials of the two parties that are members of the ruling Kenya Kwanza Alliance separately say that they are out to prove that the area was supportive of the government.
We are targeting a population of 10,000 in this constituency to the minimum. After this, we'll embark on countrywide registration from our neighboring constituencies, our Luo Nyanza counties, western counties, and probably even in this coastal region, so that we are very sure and determined that through the leadership of Honorable David Ochieng and this government of Kenya Kwanza, the Luo Nyanza are going to get liberation of multi-party democracy.
Speaking in Sega Ugenya constituency, during the launch of the MDG recruitment drive, party officials Joseph Olale and Sylvester Wira called on their competitors not to interfere with their program, adding that their party stood for peace and development.
That we should not politicize this process and associate it with any malice. MDG is a registered political party with an elected party leader in the whole of this region. So we want those other parties also to give us space to do registration out of will, so that we also get our members, so that when competition comes, it becomes free, fair and square, and the majority to win.
The occasion saw party representatives at the polling station level meet to forge the way forward when approaching development matters.
Hii mambo ya development tukue pamoja kama watu wa Ugenya. Hatutaki kukaa ati watu wa ODM wanakaa kando, watu wa MDG wanakaa kando. Sisi wakaji wa Ugenya tunataka kwa hii mambo ya development tukue kama kitu kimoja.
UDA led by politician Frederick Oyugi has been making forays in Ugunja constituency, where it has already conducted recruitment exercises in Luanda, Uhuyi and Doho areas in the past 2 weeks. Flora Limuki, TV 47.
Now, medical practitioners have vowed to stop the provision of healthcare services across different public health facilities at the devolved units if they are not paid their monthly dues in a week's time. And as Elizabeth Atino now reports, the health unions have reiterated the need to take back the devolved health services to the national government to enhance financing the sector, which they say has been ailing for a decade.
As the push and pull between the national and county governments over finances intensifies, it is evident that delivery of different services have been or will be greatly affected, with some of the crucial services likely to be affected, including healthcare. Which means that thousands of Kenyans who visit different health facilities to access crucial services will, from the 18th of this month, left stranded if the latest remarks by the Kenya Medical Practitioners, Pharmacists and Dentists Union and the Kenya Union of Clinical Officers are anything to go by.
As we ask this, we want to give a notice and put the county government on notice and the national government on notice that in the next 7 days, if they fail to comply, we are not going to give a strike notice, but each and every county, the healthcare workers will walk out awaiting for the government to react to these issues and pay the salaries as total reductions.
Our members either have not been paid their salaries, and for those who have been paid, their statutory deductions have not been paid, and so they cannot even be able to access services of National Hospital Insurance Fund.
Article 43 of Kenya's constitution states that every Kenyan has a right to the highest attainable standards of healthcare services. But according to different health unions in the country, Kenyans have since been denied this vital constitutional right.
This worrying delay, I will say categorically, that is quite historical. It has been there since the devolution of healthcare in this country, and it's been there since the Constitution 2010.
Since 2013, Kenya embarked on a rapid process of devolution with the creation of 47 counties. The health sector was one of the services devolved, leaving county governments with the burden of key management functions including planning, budgeting, financial management, human resources, and the provision of emergency medicines and medical supplies. However, based on the latest turn of events, from strikes to lack of vital medical equipment and enough medical personnel, it is as clear as day that many counties, if not all, are struggling to sustain the health sector, leaving thousands of Kenyans in dire need of the services in a state of limbo.
Our hospitals have become shells of what can be called a health facility. There are very few facilities in Kenya where you can go to today and you can be able to get the essential medicines, where you can be given a prescription and you can get the drugs from within the hospital.
About 3 months now, a section of healthcare workers have not received their monthly salaries, a situation that has forced the healthcare workers to take to the streets to protest. But it appears something is yet to be done, a situation that is now affecting both lives and livelihoods of the affected workers.
It should worry any Kenyans of goodwill that as we speak today, close to 40 counties have either not paid salaries for the healthcare workers or else have not limited statutory deductions. It means then that the workers in the counties are facing crises with the banks if they have loans. It means that the workers in the counties are not able to access services that require payment of statutory deductions.
Na tumesema kama wale ambao hawajalipwa, hawana uwezo, hawana namna kufika kazini, wasiende kazini.
And as many healthcare workers raise concerns over work burnout, ironically, there are over 4,000 qualified medical personnel who remain jobless despite the very low number of doctors in different health facilities across the country.
There was a promise that there will be employment of 20,000 healthcare workers. We are 7 months or 8 months from the elections of last year, and we are still seeing this as a dream. And we want the government to commit and employ 20,000 healthcare workers for the benefit of Kenyans.
And as the clock ticks faster and closer to the 7-day ultimatum issued by the health unions, the health of millions of Kenya is now in the hands of different county governments that are required to pay the salary arrears owed to doctors, lest the provision of healthcare services is brought to a standstill.
Solidarity forever for the youth.
Elizabeth Atieno, TV47, Nairobi.
Now, Mombasa County government has announced an outbreak of the deadly rotavirus in Mombasa County after several people were admitted to the Coast General Teaching and Referral Hospital with severe diarrhea. According to Area Governor Abdul Swamad Nasir, out of 75 samples collected by medics at the hospital and tested by Kenya Medical Research Institute, Camry, 3 patients have tested positive for the virus. Zainab Mohammed with more.
As early as about an hour ago, we've already confirmed 3 cases of those that have already been tested that it is actually rotavirus.
Speaking at a media briefing flanked by public health officers, Mombasa Governor Abdul Swamad Nasir said the county has embarked on implementing immediate containment measures, including the employment of 54 nurses to be deployed at various hospitals in the county, as well as putting all Mombasa County community health volunteers under a stipend for the next 3 months.
Public Health Department, together with the Education Department, will ensure that we will check with a view of regularizing, and in the event that hygiene levels of any ECD or daycare center, be it from the slums, be it from the private sector, be it from the public sector, if the health standards are not met, then an immediate closure on those daycare centers and ECDs. But the first priority will be to regularize these particular entities.
Further, the governor has announced that the county will be launching a vaccination drive targeted at vaccinating children against the virus. The vaccination exercise will be conducted in all public hospitals in the county.
The Trade Department, to ensure that those areas where we have people who are handling food, there should be enough water, and we should be having hand washing stations. I appeal again to everyone, especially those with children below the months of 18. I'll personally be conducting a sensitization campaign to be going out so that we can be able to vaccinate these children against the rotavirus. It is better to be vaccinated than to lose a life.
The county has also ordered the immediate chlorination of all wells and boreholes to disinfect water bodies and contain the spread of the disease. Sensitization campaigns will also be conducted in order to inform the public against the do's and don'ts of the disease.
We are asking, let us go back to being extremely hygienic. We need to ensure that we wash our hands. For those who are actually food sellers, you need to constantly wash your hands because you receive money. The money could have been contaminated and you're holding food, and the food is then passed on, and we end up having to see children being the victims out of this. So we're asking everyone to follow those set health protocols for everyone's good.
Zainab Mohammed, T47.
And gentlemen, we are here. We want to get into the conversation, and it's unfortunate that we are coming from that story that is quite sad. And I'm glad that I have members of parliament that represent the people of these various counties, the people of these various constituencies. And in their capacity, they have, this role bestowed upon them to discuss or to speak to some of these matters. Getting reports of course, these conditions that are playing out, and perhaps because of the aspect of laxity, is one thing that gets us wondering how best can we handle the question of, first of all, universal health care, and also that aspect of food security, the pillars of the Big Four agenda, and perhaps being carried to the Kenya Kwanza government. And so this gentleman would be allowed a moment or two to speak to these matters, because then again, it is incumbent upon them to as well give the common mwananchi the confidence to address this. Honorable Member of Parliament of Embakasi North is here with us, Mheshimiwa James Gakuya, as well as the Honorable Member of Parliament of Lugari, Mheshimiwa Honorable Nabi. Where I thank you so much for creating time to be with us, gentlemen. So here we are, and Lugari, Kakamega County, and look at the reports that we have received in the past 2 weeks or so, and as if not to raise an alarm, the situation continues to get dire at the level of schools. And so this combines the aspect of food security and at the same time combines the aspect of universal health care. Where do we stand as a country, and what bell does it ring, and especially to the members of parliament in terms of seeing some of these matters addressed?
Thank you. First of all, I want to appreciate once more TV47.
Thank you
for giving us an opportunity to ventilate and share with the country what is happening. It's a sad morning for me as I sit here. One of the big girls' schools in my county, Kakamega, Mukumu Girls, one of the big Catholics sponsored schools, is on closure. And just not on closure, we've lost 3 girls. And it's a question of handling of food that led to students getting affected, and over 200 students were admitted. And unfortunately for us, the school management was too laxity, in the sense that they never took it very serious, and eventually we've ended up with death. 3 things come out clear in that situation. One is the public health aspect of how we manage public institutions and how we manage the community. It is very clear that the food handling was very bad, it was very poor. Apparently, it's a aflatoxin. The water, in fact, the PS, the Cabinet Secretary for Health was in the school, and the PS Belio for Education was, and they were raging. They couldn't believe the kind of water the students were taking. And the question was, where is public health? When I grew up, and Kaguya will agree with me, there was a person called Borafia. He was feared.
I think, it was a person.
Yes, Borafia was a person. In the community, there was a chunga Borafia Spuone.
Actually, we used to hear that.
Yes, that system worked. Yeah. It had some colonial mentality, but it really worked. I can tell you, even in the community, it helped people to put up toilets. It helped homes to ensure that they were clean. So where are these people? But it's a whole question of synchrony between national government and county government. After devolving health, we have a gap in the management of certain things. This big brother syndrome by the national government and the feeling by the county government without proper preparation then has led to a gap. That's number 1. Number 2, it is our whole situation of food security in this man. If you look at the situation of Mukumu, they acquired so much cereals and they did not have capacity to store. Right? That is what explains that they are worried that if they did acquire that food at that time, the prices would skyrocket and they may not be able to buy. So they acquire when the prices are still affordable. And not minding how they store the food. So it's a whole question. Then the third aspect is a gap in the educational sector. Until we are able to synchronize who is in charge. Is it TSC or is it Ministry of Education? You could see the quality assurance people say, we wrote reports, we have been to this school, we have written reports, but the TS could not take action. I mean, the ministry could not, the director, the county director of education and the regional director of education was saying we gave reports to TSC. TSC was supposed to handle this. That gap also, and I'm glad to say as a member of the education committee, is an issue that we must address it, and we are looking at it. On the flip side, Mheshimiwa Kakuya, I was also hit in my own constituency. Students banned a dormitory.
It's still on.
Sunday night. And as a dormitory was banning in Kivaiwa High School, a school which has 1,700 students in boarding. St. Peter's Mumias, the only one, the one you know, the rugby champs for many, many years before, was also banning a dormitory. And I want to appeal to parents and use this opportunity. Please take interest in your children. Because like this other one of Kivaiwa, it is very clear. Deviant boys. The exam was starting yesterday. They were not ready. Deviant boys. As I'm talking now, 6 of them are in the cells. But you could see when you talk to those are rebellious boys. Meaning the parents absconded duty and left it to only teachers.
Okay, so Mheshimiwa, you come in on this very point. I mean, this very morning, and of course, the latest from the health sector as well, is that the union declares that they're going to go on strike. First of all, because they have not received payment for March, they say, and even worse is that they constantly remind the government that it would be necessary to, take back the health sector to the national government. In what they say is that the county governments have really not done them justice. And I think it was a conversation even during the time of the BBI. We kept on saying that for us to support the BBI only, it will happen if we are going to have something that is incorporated therein to speak to the fact that the health sector then should be taken back to the national government, and so much more that Mheshimiwa here alludes to. We clearly have a problem. You sit at the level of Parliament. Do you get to speak to some of these matters, and to what effect?
Thank you, Rida. Allow me to salute the viewers wherever they are watching us from, and especially those from Eastland, where my constituency hits. Otherwise, the matter you are talking about is not a new matter, because it has been a karama for at least a week or two. And eventually, I have also been getting it from the media that even members of parliament are also victims to this. But one thing is that we must understand, all of us, that Kenya is our country. And when we have issues, those issues, we can only deal with them, some of them internally, unless the matter is too big to be left also to have external intervention. But for the issue to do with the salaries, I think the head of state has alluded to this matter, and he has talked to the public, and he has just assured civil service that they'll just get their dues very soon. So it's a matter that, in fact, there before, we have not been handling it very well. Because you realize when the country always depends with correction of revenue. And these taxes are the ones that actually, after correction, are dispersed as per the programs within budget. And you realize that, Rinda, that sometimes you do your projections. You do targets, and sometimes you don't realize your target. And once you don't realize your target, then you arrive to a point of deficit. Sometimes to fill those deficits also is an elephant. And that's how to run government is not easy. because you need to make sure that every sector is well taken care of, and the backstop to the president at the end. Because if a certain sector is not well looked in, still the backstop stops at the head of state. In this case, I want to say, yes, the Kenyans should also realize that, in fact, we have been in a very tough time since the last concluded elections, and that tough time has been too pushy to the economy. Because drought is not a simple matter, and I would like to tell Kenyans it was not easy, and we need to thank God that God has given us rain, and the hope is now back. That, in fact, what is very dangerous, Linda, is to rule or to lead a hungry society. Those hungry societies can't be able even to reason. Nobody will be able even to go to work if he has slept hungry, because the engine to work is when you feel, and no single vehicle can be able to be on the road when it is empty of fuel. Then when the stomach is empty of food, then you realize that also to have energetic society to work is not there. And because of those hard times, I am sure that, in fact, we also need to realize that the projection and the targets of revenue collection has also been too poor, depending on that situation. And I am sure that, in fact, that is a gap we are realizing now. But I would suggest that instead of borrowing to pay the current expenditure, the government is better look at a different strategy. Because that one, to me, you go and borrow. You put this money to current expenditure. Really, you are not doing yourself anything good. But you can borrow and put that money to development. But at least we can be able to mitigate our small issues within a week or two. Though there are those pending, maybe standing, because I to really understand with the crime, with those nurses and so on, because you realize that counties are not doing very well, and most likely you realize that, in fact, they even goes at least 2 months without getting their dues. That is not fair, and that's not justifiable. Yeah. And one thing, Linda, let us say, if there is a sector which is performing bad, is that healthy sector? And me, I am not alluding to that proposal of taking it back to national government. What we must do, we must have working counties that are really, and if I can say, I could say that, in fact, the checks and balances at county has a lot of weaknesses. Or these constitutional elevations that actually it's the MCs who should check the governors. And you realize that it's like they are compromising in a way, and they mute. And when they mute, then things will go higher. Will go in a direct, haphazard way. Yeah. And most likely is where we realize to be situation in the county levels. But I'm sure that if the MCAs can do their work and prudently perform their duties, they can be able to put governors into check, and things can work. Because they pass budgets like the national government. They collect the revenues domestically, and they also depend on the what we call national government
remittances. Just how much does the county collect?
No. Let me say something. First of all, I want to thank my brother here. He is very, very open-minded on this issue. Taking nurses to national government is not a solution. We were there. Okay. It wasn't working. Okay. It wasn't. I can tell you, I come from a rural county. The matrix with him may be slightly different because he has Kenyatta Hospital here, he has Mbagadi, he has now Jomo Kenyatta University. Yeah. I come from a rural county. And if we had a referral before county government, the nearest was Eldoret.
Oh, no, of course.
Yes, the nearest, Moi Rifar. A person coming from Butere, border of CI, by the time he reaches Eldoret, he's gone.
He's gone.
But with county government, we could see the development of Kakamega Rifar. I mean, and it changed the matrix.
Okay.
All right? It is true what Mheshimiwa is saying, that we have gaps in terms of accountability, but not all. The biggest challenge which we find ourselves in is county government for 4 months. They have not gotten national government. They have not gotten their share of revenue from Treasury. They haven't. What would you do?
Totally not.
Even if you had a stopgap for 2 months, fortunate enough for you people,
yeah,
I just come from managing accounting, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we would have a plan. For example, for 2 months, you would arrange with your bank. But for 4 months, the bank would also be saying, if you are a big county like Kakamega, where salary is 400 million, actually going to 500 million a year, a month, and they have given you 1 billion shillings in a month. You go to a third month, you want another 5. They will tell you, no, hey, boy, it's going to affect our cash flow also as a bank. I want to say this with a lot of humility. I've analyzed this situation. Please forget about which political party I come from. But I've analyzed this situation. Mm-hmm. And as I listened to the president yesterday, I sympathized. There are 3 things that are happening. Mm-hmm. One, that I'm very upset about, the people in Treasury are not giving the president competent advice. This is what would happen. When times are difficult, you have a scenario like the one the president alluded to, national debt. Right?
Yeah.
You have the recurrent that is called must pay salary.
And we ask ourselves, how does it
Yes, salary. There are things that you can't,
yeah,
salary and medicine. That is because you must keep the health of the nation.
Yeah.
A competent Treasury would have gone to the president and said, hey, Mr. President, in the next 3 months, that should have happened in December. We are going to have all these debts following due. We may, looking at our projection and the way because it's an international issue, the way the international economy is operating, we may have a problem. We propose, President, talk to Kaguya, talk to Janet, if their debt can wait. They are not doing it.
Yeah.
They are exposing the president. On this one, I am holding the technocrats in Treasury and Central Bank solely responsible.
Holding the debts will be equivalent to, as well, basically what it is they're doing, because eventually you're going to pay them.
No, this is what happens. Yeah. And it happens even in our homes.
Negotiate?
You negotiate.
Okay.
It happens even in our homes. You wake up one morning, you have children to take to school, yeah, you have food to take care of, you have this shopkeeper who gives you things. Mm-hmm. His debt is due. What do? You walk to him and tell him, add me more, but allow me space.
Is it not what the president is doing by telling the civil servants, can you hold for a moment, let us fix this debt, and then we're going to speak
No,
to you?
I've told you there is what is called a must pay.
That is a must pay.
Because that civil servant needs to eat.
Okay. They have
to
be
must pay.
Yeah.
That's why it can't wait.
Okay.
But the lender?
The lender can't wait.
Okay.
Because he is lending to make profit.
Yes.
He has something extra. If you don't have, you can't lend.
Yeah.
You understand?
Yeah.
So I'm holding them solely responsible.
The rules of the game are simple. If it is about a debt, then of course the interest will continue to go up.
Once an economy picks up, he will tell you he's a businessman.
He'll manage to pay.
Yes, once the economy picks up, you can always reorganize and pay, even if you pay an extra more shilling, but the nation will have come up.
Okay.
What happens where we are today, let me tell you, for example, if all of us were to down tools, what happens? We will never recover.
We never recover. We crumble.
We can't recover. I can tell you, the country will go into a downturn. Yes. So that is why you must look at what we call what is the best option out of this.
Honorable Gakuya here agrees to the fact that the president says he cannot borrow to pay recurrent expenditure. My question then would be, what are the mechanisms that have been set, first of all, to address this question of the current expenditure? Because equally...
One leader, let me say, in very short term, that the member sentiments are quite in order. And in fact, even in Japan and America, they are still also want to pay pending bills. No single government has no pending bills. But let me tell you, you cannot hold your civil service at lump sum because they are those are the service deliverers. Those are the people who you expect to go to collect those revenue. Those are the people who matter. Then, when they are now on what we call go slow, then you cannot achieve your target. So, those are people that you must deal with them and fix them in good time.
So then what are you telling us?
In this case, I'm saying the priorities
be addressed.
Must be addressed. And the priority one is to make sure that you fix your civil service. What you must do is to have a very early arrangement with your projections. And make sure that those people that actually can be able to fix you in maturity of those roads. When those roads you are sure mature, they are maturing next month. Allege early 1 month before. Talk to the lender.
But Mheshimiwa here was with us when they got to government, and he assured us that things are...
One we must agree on one thing. We dance, all of us lives on earth.
Yeah.
We don't live on moon. We don't live on moon. And let me tell you, things changes. And the way we are, we're in a world crisis. This world crisis has not been emanated from a single country. It is all world over. And therefore, the stagnation of economy is not only in Kenya. So you might be, during your campaign, you promised a lot, but in fact, during now, the little practicality, you don't manage to get to that level. So what do? You deal with the circumstances and the situation at that time. Because you cannot start to say, because we promised that we must have things, then we must climb this mountain, whether we have water or not. You must deal with the situations as they come. Drought is some of those things that are unforeseen. When they come, you deal with them as they come. And therefore, you cannot say, because we carry together all of us. Let us not say that these people does not belong. And this country, I agree with you, we don't require to reason as parties. We need to reason as citizens. This is a problem, and it's our whole country problem. Because when a children is out of school at Rongo, a children at school at Muranga is out of school, a children at Moyale is dying of hunger, we are all suffering as a nation. And therefore, fixing a solution does not matter what party. Let us fix our problems that they come as a nation. And we must all support that president, because failure to that, the president will not be able to be at his constituency. But he will address the problems of his own constituency. How does he sort them? He will sort them at the level he will be able to do. The rest he push the governor. The governor push the national government. All of us, as a chain, we move to with that. But we reason otherwise, we lose it.
Kaguya said something I want to pick from. When I go to my constituency, the people look at me in the eye. I can't explain to them that Kenya Kwanza is unable.
Okay.
They wonder now.
They look at you as the government.
We elected.
Yes.
Okay. Now we elected you. You can't tell us. Let me tell you. When they banned the dormitory and I was at the school and we were discussing whether to close the school or not. So the question I asked, We take them home. There's no food at home. There's no school transport to come or to go. The parents have not said, are we going to give these children transport to take them home? The answer was no. Is there food at home they are going to eat? The answer was, so we are better off keeping them. We let them sleep in the class, but they stay where? In the school. Because the little money the parent had, he brought a school fees, it has bought some food, which they can eat. That's where we are. The truth about this thing is this, that we are in a crisis. True to say, any serious economist should have been able to see this and advise the president of the country that, look, we are not going to meet our targets. The fuel cost is going up. The economy, the shilling is not rotating because the value of our shilling is going down. Therefore, the possibility of us meeting our targets to pay debt and pay salary and blah, blah, is not going to be there. How do we work out? First, feed people. Please, feed even us. That parliament cannot work. If the workers, as we come to the people who move parliament are the workers. They have to prepare bills, they have to do all. Now, if we don't pay them, so we will come there to do what? That's the issue here. And that's why I'm saying it is a situation where, as a country, we must come together and say, who has ideas on how we can come out of this? It's not about just